This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
James Teague is with us. He is from the Teague Law Firm and a former Arkansas pitcher. Good afternoon, James. Has your weekend started yet? Because last week we talked to you moments when you got out of the courthouse.
My weekend has not started. Matt and Phil, it's good to be on. I actually just got off the phone with someone that said, hey, my grandpa heard you on the radio and sent me your way. I got a divorce going on. I need your help. So it's working, I tell you that.
Radio advertising works, everybody. Did you get a load of
There
that? It's the truth. It's the absolute truth. Well, you got to start with LSU winning a national championship. And two aspects to look at this, okay? One, great College World Series, so entertaining. Last two games really weren't all that entertaining, just a couple of blowouts. And two, I don't know if you caught the ratings for overall the College World Series, the finals, and the last game. Was the best ratings that the College World Series has ever had on ESPN. And that last game between the Tigers and the Gators, that drew over 3 million people. Now, it had a standalone audience because there wasn't another big event going on like a golf outing that would have happened on Sunday, too, or a golf tournament. But, man, I mean, it really looks like people were much more interested in the College World Series even than they were the year before nationally.
Yeah, I think some of that, too, is kind of the break and the timing. You're coming off a major tournament. You're coming off NBA Finals. It's kind of the next thing up. But, I mean, that's great. I mean, anytime the game is more popular, especially at the college level, I think that's always going to be a good thing. You know, you kind of, as a Razorback fan, hate to see LSU win, but I would much rather it be an SEC team being LSU or Florida than Wake Forest personally, so I can't say I'm too upset.
So you bang that SEC drum. I kind of thought about that. Like, I remember feeling like that when Vanderbilt played Michigan because I was like, no Big Ten team is going to win a national title. I went against that this time around. I was rooting for anybody but really anybody but LSU and Tennessee. I was all right with Florida, but I don't know. I get where you're coming from, but I don't think that losing the national championship series or another team that's outside the conference winning it means that the SEC is not still the most dominant. It just is, James. Isn't it crazy? SEC is dominant in college football, but it's two programs. SEC is dominant in women's college basketball, but it's two programs. In the SEC for baseball, take your pick of like 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah, I think geographically we do have the benefit of better weather. And I think once programs get started and they start recruiting, they start getting money and building facilities and they get their name, it's kind of a train that's just hard to stop rolling. I mean, you look at like Arkansas facilities or even some other SEC schools, it's like it's going to be hard for a school outside the SEC to compete with that, especially teams that are in the North. And I think once you have that, and then you get the recruiting, and then you get the funding, it just kind of really takes off.
All right, so
James,
go ahead, Matt. Go ahead. Matt Jones is over at All American Refrigeration, Heating, and Cooling today. James, so go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to see if because I know Phil's a Pittsburgh Pirate fan. And if they got the number 1 overall pick, are you taking Paul Skenes, James, in this year's MLB draft?
I'm taking Paul Skenes for sure. I mean, I think Cruz and Langford, unbelievable players. But I think Paul Skenes, he just has that Garrett Cole feel. He has that I can be your number 1 or number 2 guy. I'm big. I'm durable. I'm not an idiot. You know, I've got the intangibles. And, you know, when you watch him throw, it's easy. You know, you don't see an easy 100 like that often. And I think he can be kind of one of those, you know, once every 5 years type of college arms that you just really can't pass up. Granted, you know, Langford and Cruz, you know, they look at their numbers, they're crazy, and they're going to be impact players, I think, every day at a big league level, and that's the trade-off. But I think Skenes is just that good that even though he plays every 5 days, he's worth taking in that number 1 spot, especially for a team that's a little light on pitching.
You told us about throwing 100 once or twice, right?
I did, yeah. I got on the driveline program in pro ball, and I made some big jumps. I was a pansy in college, throwing 92, but then finally figured some things out in pro ball.
All right, but the way that you described the way that Skenes throws his 100, an easy 100, right? So when I watch Chase Burns throw 100, it's not an easy 100 because he's max effort. Watching Paul Skenes throw that, you can tell he's not max effort. I can imagine you might have been, it wasn't an easy 100, was it?
No. I vividly remember being on the mound, and it was my last outing in pro ball, and I knew I was done. I was mentally and physically just done, and I thought, I am going to just. It's almost like the feeling of whiplash. Like, how can I be so aggressive with this pitch? And that's kind of how I threw all the time. And I had to, at a 6-foot frame with cleats on, granted, to produce that much energy and velocity. You just don't have the benefit of a guy who, is 6'6", 230 to produce that much momentum and that much speed. So, yeah, my upper 90s was a lot more energy than Skenes. It looks like he's just playing catch, throw to the glove, nice and easy. And really from a durability standpoint, that's what you need in a guy you want to draft long term.
Yeah, and I'm a Pirates fan, James, so it's like I'm trying to go back. I've been going back and forth about this in my mind because I think Cruz is a special player too. When I look at Skenes' pitch, and it blows me away when I read some scouts that have to be nitpicky about things here and there. A couple of the guys are like, I don't see a future ace. And I'm thinking, what? I don't know what it is you're watching, but I guess they got to nitpick because scouts have to nitpick. That's part of their profession.
Mm. And I think his breaking ball could get a little bit better. He kind of throws the hard, sharp one and then kind of more of the sweeper. I think his breaking ball could be a little better, but when you have that command and that ability to throw the changeup that consistently, I think that is what kind of takes you to that next level of I'm not only durable, I not only have the stuff, I have the command, and my breaking pitches can get better, and that's going to take me from a 3 guy to maybe the ace.
James Teague is with us, former Arkansas pitcher, member of the Teague Law Firm. James, yesterday we talked about it's the 20-year anniversary this month of the release of the book Moneyball. The movie came out, it was 8 years after that, and it's probably the most influential sports book of our generation. I'm assuming, you're a really intelligent guy, so I'm assuming you read this book. Do you have memories of this, and do you come on either side of the debate? Because people say they look at themselves as a Moneyball guy. Well, that means you can't be an old-school baseball guy. And I do think that there's a way to marry these two things together.
So I've not read the book. I have seen the movie, Brad Pitt, great movie. I'm right there with you. I think you got to play that middle ground. At some point you got to look a guy in the eye and know, does he have, the stomach to go out there and perform? Does he have that, the mentality that says, I'm going out there to dominate. I'm not going out there to just hopefully survive this outing and, have my name on the jersey. You got to have all those intangibles. But at the same time, how do the numbers play? You look at a guy, can't think of his name right now, but he struck out 17 for LSU. He's throwing that true four-seam kind of high-rise fastball, which, it's hard. It's mid to upper 90s, but the analytics behind it are what's making it really dominant. And so I think you have to marry the two of how do I have the intangibles, how do I get to show up every day and to work and compete and to be kind of that grinder mentality, but also use the analytics to my benefit, where it applies. I'm not old school. I'm not full analytics. I think I'm right there in the middle somewhere.
Did you see the catcher for Florida, B.T. Riopelle? The announcer, I didn't realize this, but the announcers, I think it was the second game of the finals, brought it up that he's not even making himself available for the draft, that he plans on going right into a career in finance. Now, I don't know how B.T. Riopelle might have fit into a major league organization's plans. I just know he's a pretty good catcher in the SEC. He came in with a lot of big hits and hit for power in big moments. That caught me a little bit by surprise, but I think a lot of us who see athletes that we all think have a chance to, quote, chase the dream, unquote, don't realize how sometimes that dream can be a real grind, And I wonder, did you going into the draft consider not going into the draft and starting your career? You did play pro ball for a few years, and then, know that you wanted to start a family and start a career. So I just wonder how you balanced that approach when you were coming out of college.
I had such a bad year, honestly, in 2016. It was a little bit unclear. My draft stock fell quite a bit, and so it was unclear if I would be drafted. I had talked to my wife at that point and said, if I am, let's look at the numbers, let's look at the time. And we had kind of decided, hey, if you're going to be drafted and you want to continue on this journey, let's try to make it quick or get out. That was my mentality going into it, which is why I did kind of the aggressive training and the drive line and trying to throw hard. And, I didn't want to be a minor league journeyman because I knew it was a grind. I don't think I knew how much of a grind it was until I really got into it. But I think everyone's got to know, number one, what is my likelihood of actually making it to the big leagues? And what is the opportunity cost that I'm giving up from a career at home or being with my family to chase that dream? And then just weighing those things to figure out, what is best for you in that situation. I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad that I didn't sign for much. I was going to be out of money pretty soon. But I'm glad I tried. I made the big jump in pro ball. But ultimately, it was time to move on, start my life, have kids, get the law degree, and move on. I think everyone's got to just figure out where it fits best for them.
I know some guys that rode the buses for a long, long time, and they enjoyed it, but also it beat you down a little bit. So, you obviously had another option that you knew was there for you and that you felt you could complete and you could succeed at, and it's obviously worked really well because, hey, how many years did it take you from law school to get in the courtroom the first time?
So it was from the start of law school till in the courtroom was 3. So there's quite a bit of grinding that goes on that front too. But you know how it is. Anything you do is going to be grind. You got to show up and compete, and whether it's law or school or radio or anything. So
did minor league baseball ever? Do you ever think that the grind of, because I have friends who are lawyers, and they described what law school was like. That first year, it's like if you make it past that first year, you'll probably be able to finish. They would underline probably, but it was a huge grind. Like nobody would ever go out because everybody had to study, and I understand why. Minor league baseball is a grind too. Was there anything from minor league baseball or that career that you took into law school specifically?
Definitely. I think it's kind of the mentality that Coach Jorn really nailed into people's heads, that just like, doesn't matter what you're doing, it's how do you prepare and how do you show up ready to compete. And if you do those two things right, you have a chance to succeed. I know that may sound a little bit corny, but I think it does apply, whether it's baseball or law school, because it was a grind. I was commuting to Oklahoma City every Thursday and then coming back on Monday, living here with my wife on the weekends and commuting there. So that was really tough. But, yeah, it's a different kind of grind because mentally you're balancing a lot of different things. You're juggling a lot of people's problems, frankly, that they're relying on you to fix, whereas the baseball grind is more about how do I compete, how do I get better, why did I give up 3 home runs today, why did I bonk this guy in the head? It's different problems that you're having, but ultimately it's, am I prepared and am I ready to compete no matter what I'm doing?
So for college pitchers going into the month of July, did you play summer wooden bat summer ball? I know not everybody does. Well, just answer that question. I'll ask another question off that.
Yeah, I played I was up in Mequon, Wisconsin Northwoods League. We had a great time.
What was that like up there? Was it, you playing with wooden bat, did you feel that was it anywhere near the level of competition in the SEC? What was that like up there?
No, it was not. It was not as competitive as SEC. I went there after my freshman year and had a really good summer and came back, ready to be on the weekend rotation for my sophomore year. But it's fun because you play with guys from all over the country. Some guys are, kind of hot shots. Some are just wanting to play on a team. You get to travel around and kind of get to experience. It's kind of like quasi-pro ball is how I would describe it. But we were right there on the lake, north of Milwaukee. And, just new environment, host family. You got to get to meet some new people. It's a pretty cool experience.
A lot of communication. Was there any? I'm assuming there is between the coaching staff at Arkansas and the coaches that you work with in the summer wooden bat leagues, especially for pitchers, because they're going to want to restrict probably the number of pitches that you throw, dependent on how many pitches you threw or how many innings you threw in the college season.
Yeah, exactly. Coach Vitello actually ripped me when I was up there. Because I went on a fishing trip with my grandpa at the end of the summer, and I had missed my last start. I didn't think it was a big deal. I had a bunch of starts. I let him know early on, and we got back, and he was like, if you go to summer ball, you're not missing a game. You're not missing a start. You don't just show up and then take vacations for fun. And so they actually implemented a rule that, it's almost like a contract. If I go to the Northwood League or play, I'm going to be there the whole season. So he wasn't a big fan of me after that fishing trip. But, the trip was great, so I don't regret it.
All right, James. Hey, it's been a lot of fun having you on the show throughout the entire baseball season. I hope we can do it again next year. And since it sounds like the radio radio advertising worked, I think we can probably give it a try at some point. James, appreciate you, man. Have a great summer, a great holiday, and thank you for your time here on Halftime.
Yeah, Phil and Matt, it's been great to talk to you guys. The show's awesome. I really appreciate your time and having me on, and I'll look forward to doing it again.
James Teague, former Arkansas pitcher, has joined us on Halftime all throughout the baseball season. He's with the Teague Law Firm. They've been around for over 30 years. Best of Northwest Arkansas 2019 and 2021. They'll help with criminal law. They'll help with family law, any estate need. Full-service law firm. Teague Law Firm, available at 479-877-1688. 479-877-1688. You will talk to actual lawyers, and they will call you back. Also go online to teague-law.com. And stay with us as Halftime continues after this.
BetOnline is your #1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.